Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Strategic Planning Committee today. So, membership of the committee. We'll start with the first item. Have we got any apologies? No. Apologies. So we will just maybe Councillor Thompson maybe come in. We'll just wait see if he turns up. Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting. Are people happy with those? Yeah, happy with those. Okay. So item 3, declarations of interest and lobbying. We'll go round. Councillor Sokol.
Yeah, none to declare. Yeah.
None to declare.
None, Chair.
Yes, Chair. I've been lobbied by email from a Burton Parish Councillor, Claire Walters, regarding application 2021-91507 on page 39. She refers to previous HSE comments on a 2014 application and a geotechnical report. I've responded to her. I've noted that the HSE matter is referred to in section 1081 of the committee report, and the issue for the geotechnical report is dealt with at the foot of page 65. I've advised I will only reach a decision after considering all the information placed before the committee. Moving on, in my ward councillor role, I regularly attend meetings of the Grangemore Community Association, and I'm aware of the feelings of that body regarding application 2023-93704 on page 103 here. I have declined to comment on or offer advice to the association about that application. And finally, I sit on Burton Parish Council, where current applications 2021-91507, 2021-92527 and 2023-93704 have been discussed. I have refrained from speaking about any of these applications, and I have abstained on any decisions about the council submitting comments. Thank you. Sorry about that, but there we go.
Thank you. I've got nothing to declare. Okay. Admission of the public, so it's a public meeting. We're not expecting to have it as a private meeting, and we've got members of the public here, and also we're on webcast. Public question time, don't think? No questions received. Okay. And deputations and petitions?
No deputations or petitions.
Okay, so we'll move to the planning applications. Yeah, I can do. So first off, just to say, we did the site. We've completed the site visits, so we can move through those ones. Just before we start on the planning applications, just want to deal with one matter in relations to the agenda item 12 and 13, which is the two sites that are off Cockley Hill Lane. So one of the reasons that the applications have come to the committee is because Councillor Musrat Khan, who's the ward councillor, referred them to the committee. As you'll be aware, under our rules, when members refer to the committee, they're supposed to attend the committee to make the representations around that. So in this case, Councillor Khan can't be here today. We did have some discussions about putting on a future agenda. However, by the time that was discussed, they were already part of the agenda for this meeting. So we just need to make a decision on what we should do. So we have to decide whether to defer it. My view is that we have the views of Councillor Khan within the report, and those have been explained and answered. The points have been answered. We obviously need to consider, the efficient use of the time of the committee and members of the public and others who've come and made representations and so on. So my suggestion would be that we accept that Councillor Khan can't be here and we still consider those items, but I have to just check that we all are happy with that proposal to consider these items today. So if I move that, is anyone happy to second that? Yeah, are we all in? Councillor Pinnock?
Can I just make a query, and that is that I wouldn't like the authority to be subject to a legal challenge if there was any question of that. I mean, personally, I think we should go ahead and make the decisions, but I'd just like some reassurance that it's not the ability to challenge what we've done might not be fatal.
Yeah, do you want, got the legal officer. Yep.
We had a discussion before the meeting, Councillor Pinnock. My understanding is that this is an item that would have been brought to the committee in any event, and so on that basis I can't see that there would be any material difference in the outcome in considering it today. So on that basis I think any challenge would be difficult.
Sheila?
Yeah, just to point out as well, there are other options. If ward councillors aren't able to attend, they can send a colleague. We also offer the facility to join via Teams, or there is the facility to send a speech, which I can read out. So they do have that option.
Okay. So on that basis, we're happy with that decision. I don't want to waste people's time who've come. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Right, so we'll move now to the applications. So the first one is the land adjacent to 894 Huddersfield Road, Ravensthorpe. Agenda item 13. Ellie? Is it Ellie? Yep.
Good afternoon, members. Ellie Thornhill, case officer for this application. This application relates to land adjacent to 894 Huddersfield Road in Ravensthorpe. The application seeks full planning permission for 11 dwellings and the formation of a new access and open space. The application has been brought to committee as it would fail to provide a full policy compliance Section 106 package. Here is the application site. The site lies to the north of Huddersfield Road and the River Calder. Existing residential development lies to the east and north, with the newly built The Swan petrol station and store to the west. Just down here. Here is an aerial photo of the site. The site appears to be a grassed area with dense tree coverage along its edges. The majority of the site falls under the housing allocation HS63, which has an indicative capacity of 11 dwellings. The southeastern edge of the site, which is kind of down here, lies within flood zone 2. Here are some photos of the site. This photo is taken from the footpath along Huddersfield Road looking into the site. This photo captures the existing dwellings at 890, 892 and 894 Huddersfield Road, which are there. These photos were taken from within the site, with the arrows on the attached plan showing the direction to which they were taken in. The site slopes gently towards the highway being down there. These photos were taken from the rear of the site and show the relationship the development would have with the existing nearby dwellings. The site is free of any built form other than a small outbuilding which would be demolished as part of this application. Lastly, this photo is taken looking at the site's frontage and relationship with Huddersfield Road, and this is where a new access would be created. Here is the proposed site layout. The scheme proposes 11 dwellings, public open space and a new access, with the current access being closed off. There would be 6 detached dwellings and a row of 5 terrace properties. The detached dwellings would be 4-bed and the terrace properties 3-bed. The open space / landscaped area have been proposed in flood zone 2 to allow all the built form to be located within flood zone 1. Given that the site is allocated for housing, meets the required density and responds appropriately to the site's challenges, the principle of development is supported by officers. It is also important to note that the site has previously been granted outline consent in 2015 and reserved matters approval in 2017. With regards to the design, the dwellings would be 2-storey and 2.5-storey with accommodation within the roof. This slide shows the floor plans and elevations for the detached dwellings. The dwellings have been designed with a simple vernacular including dual-pitched roofs and a front gable. So the detached dwellings would be the 2.5-storey. Here are the elevations for the terrace row. These dwellings would also follow the simple design with front and rear gables. Materials include artificial stone and blue tiles to the roof. Full details of materials would be requested by condition in the case of an approval. In terms of residential amenity, officers consider the dwellings to provide adequate separation distances to third-party properties. Internal separation distances are also considered acceptable with the dwellings either meeting or exceeding the nationally described space standards. With regards to highway safety, the proposal has been assessed by KC Highway DM. Officers note that the application shows the same point of access onto Huddersfield Road as the previous consent. The proposed site plan shows a traditional estate road that would be gated. Whilst officers would prefer an inclusive development, it is noted that should the development be gated, then it cannot be considered for adoption and its maintenance and management would be at the future residents' expense. Notwithstanding this, the proposed site plan shows the gates 20 metres back from the highway to allow a vehicle, for example a refuse vehicle or a fire truck, to pull off the highway safely without causing any obstruction onto Huddersfield Road. Adequate visibility and swept paths have also been demonstrated. In terms of parking, plots 1 to 6, the 4-bed dwellings would have 3 off-street parking spaces, and plots 7 to 11, the 3-bed properties would have 2 each. 3 visitor parking spaces are also proposed, which are considered appropriate for a development of this size. Overall, the site has been considered acceptable from a highway perspective and would accord with national and local policy requirements. There is also sufficient space within the site for drainage, landscape and some biodiversity net gain. With regards to planning contributions, a full policy compliance scheme would require 2 affordable homes, an off-site public open space contribution of £9,161 and an off-site BNG contribution of £15,870 to achieve a 10% net gain. However, a viability report has been submitted with the application to show that the scheme, with the provision of affordable housing, would be unviable. This has been independently reviewed by Align Property Partners. A full summary of this can be found within paragraphs 10.86 to 10.89 of the committee report. However, to summarise, Align consider that 1 affordable home with the public open space and biodiversity net gain contribution would provide a profit level of 16.18%. In this instance, officers note the small-scale nature of the site and the risks associated with developing this, and therefore consider a profit level of 17.5% to be reasonable. There is also a significant need to boost housing delivery in the Ravensthorpe area, with the council also failing to demonstrate a 5-year land supply. Therefore, with this in mind, officers are willing to accept no affordable housing in this instance, however are still looking to secure the POS and BNG contributions. Finally, 2 representations have been received as part of this application. The concerns raised have been considered and addressed within the committee report. In summary, the application proposes 11 dwellings on an allocated site. The development responds appropriately to the character and context of the area, whilst ensuring acceptable levels of amenity are retained, along with highway safety and all other material planning considerations. For these reasons, officers are recommending approval for this application with the Section 106 package proposed. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Ellie. So we have Nick Willock, the agent. Let's speak. You've got 3 minutes. Take it away.
Good afternoon, committee. I'm Nick Willock, agent for the applicant. This is an allocated housing site and your local plan states, I quote, planning permission will be expected to be granted if the proposals comply with the development principles, which are those set out in the local plan allocations and designations document. Your officers have confirmed the scheme complies with these principles. Planning permission has also been granted before on this site, but this was for the benefit of the previous landowners who were not themselves developers. The site is now owned by a small independent housing company and so is highly likely to come forward quickly for development should planning permission be granted today. Local and national planning policy allows the issue of viability to be considered fairly in the planning process, and in this case the viability report has been undertaken rigorously, transparently and in full accordance with all relevant government, council and professional standards. This report has been assessed by independent experts appointed by the council, and they have concluded that if this site is to remain viable and hence deliverable, the site cannot provide affordable housing. The local plan inspector's official report to the council accepted that, I quote again, in some areas the delivery of affordable housing will not be possible. In this case, the issues for this small development include the significant increases in building costs, finance rates at their highest level for 16 years, the below average house values being on the edge of Ravensthorpe, which is a low market value area, and abnormal costs such as the need for cut and fill and the likely issues associated with historic coal mining. However, despite this difficult situation, the applicant has agreed to the request for the off-site biodiversity and public open space contributions worth £25,000. As the committee report outlines, Kirklees is unable to demonstrate sufficient levels of housing supply or delivery, and so government policy says that local authorities must grant planning permission unless it is clearly demonstrated that any adverse impacts would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. The Deputy Prime Minister said this week that the government wanted to tackle the most acute housing crisis in living memory, and she has written to all councils to make it clear that this is not just a professional responsibility, but a moral obligation to see more homes built. Your officers support this scheme and point to both the limited current housing delivery within Ravensthorpe and the need to significantly boost supply in the area. We would therefore respectfully request that planning permission is granted in accordance with your officers' recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. So that's everybody in terms of speakers, so open to the committee. Yeah, Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. Despite the officer's recommendation and despite what Mr Willock has said, I am unfortunately against this because they've decided to have a gated development. And I really do not think we should be giving permission for such developments because, well, it's closing a community off from the rest of the community, and I just do not approve of that at all. Quite apart from the fact that because bin wagons cannot get into the site, bins will have to be wheeled right from the far end of the development to the front by somebody or other. I just think this is totally undesirable. And I will say the same thing when we come to the other one in the agenda. It's probably not against planning law, but I just do not think that in the interests of what might be generally described as good community relations, that you have, and you can interpret that how you like, a section of the community that shuts itself off from the rest. So I'm putting my foot down.
Well, it might not be against planning laws, is quite a big but, isn't it? There in that case, Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to echo Councillor Pinnock's concerns. I only live 2 streets away from the application site, and if it does go ahead, it'll be the only gated community, gated part of Ravensthorpe. All the residents in the area, we don't have another site that is gated. Even with the new homes that were built many years ago, in the last 15-20 years, they've all been open. There's not a gated site elsewhere in Ravensthorpe. It will look odd.
Councillor Armour.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I entirely agree with colleagues there. I don't like the issue of gated communities. There may or may not be planning regulations directly about them, but I do think gated communities impact on residential amenity, and they impact, in my view, on community development and community integration. So I really, really don't like that proposal, and I'm aware that there's another one on the agenda. Thank you.
Councillor Sokol.
Chair, can I ask the officer to explain, is it is a planning material or not?
Yeah, we'll bring the officer. I think we do need to bear in mind that this has come to the committee really to look at the 106 and the affordable housing, and I think we can make suggestions, I guess, in terms of how the the gated or not gated elements apply, but I'm not sure it's specifically relevant. Does anyone want to comment on that? Yeah, Tess.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. It's a material planning consideration, the issue of character and appearance and community cohesion. However, as there's always a however, you must weigh that against the benefits of the scheme. It's the plans that you have in front of you today. They include a gated element, but you must weigh that in the round with the benefits of delivering the housing, the other policy requirements, and then come to a balanced judgment on whether that element is so significant to outweigh the other benefits. And my advice would be, you would be very difficult to substantiate that. We cannot insist that they take them off. We do have several gated community examples that this committee have approved, other committees have approved, and it's not to cast aspersions. I don't necessarily disagree with the sentiment, but in planning terms, it is not a strong reason in its own right if you weigh the benefits against that element. So that's back to you, members. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Amwar?
Thank you, Chair. Just to ask officers, could it be put in condition not to have a gate and then pre-approve?
Conditions have to be agreed with applicants. The plans include the gate at the minute. We have had significant discussions on the adoptable road issue. We cannot adopt the road. We will be putting planning conditions on to ensure the road design is appropriate. Unless the applicant doesn't want to have the gates, and that's their choice, but I think unilaterally you cannot just impose it. It's what's on the plans in front of you that you determine.
Councillor Sackle?
Can I ask again, Chair? You know, previously the application was approved in 2017. Yeah, for 11 houses. Is that application was same as gated side? No, it wasn't. It's a new one.
I haven't got that level of granular detail as to whether it's gated.
But
we would have to go away and find that. But it's expired, that permission. So it's planning history as opposed to a significant material planning consideration. But I don't know the answer whether it had gates on it or not.
yeah, it's only the issue is on gated side, you know, otherwise the application is acceptable, yeah. But can we ask the applicant agent if he agree with that to put a condition on there?
Yeah, if you're happy to answer, Nick.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. If that's the difference between an approval and a refusal, then yeah, we'll accept the condition.
Okay. So, with that in mind, is there any further comments? Councillor?
Yes, I'm bearing in mind what you said just now about the main reason why this is here is because of the viability issues, and this can always or does always give rise to differences of opinion about whether something is viable or not. And I note that the third party arbiter has said that it will be acceptable, although I hear what the planning officer said about the difference between one house and two houses in terms of affordability. It's beyond the capability of this committee to do anything about this, but something or other needs to be done at a higher level to make more developments more viable and more affordable. It is, as I say, above our pay grade, really. Something that government, I think, needs to take note of. There are too many cases, because if even one development that has to lose affordable housing is wrong, we need to do something probably nationally to make things more deliverable in terms of those people, in some cases, in relatively desperate need of a house of their own. So, given all of that, I can't change the landscape with this application. What we've been given has been shown to be acceptable to officers, and under those circumstances, and bearing in mind what we've heard about gates, I'd like to move approval. It's not totally satisfactory, and I will say that, but given all that's been said, we haven't a huge amount of choice in the matter, except the gate. And I'll move approval.
Thank you. Councillor Armour?
Yes, thank you. Well, given what the developer's agent has said, and subject to the withdrawal of the gates, I'm happy to second that proposal.
Okay, so we've had a mover and a seconder for approval with the added sort of agreed condition around gates. So I think we can go to the vote on that, if that's all right, Sheila.
So you're voting on approval, subject to the development not being gated. There was also a slight amendment to condition 6 that was included in the update, so that is also included in this vote now. Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Anwar?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Armour?
For.
Councillor Homewood?
For.
That's carried, Chair, unanimous.
Right, thank you. Thanks, members. We'll move on to the next application. So, just to say as well, I know we just discussed earlier application items 12 and 13. What we'll do is, although they're sort of two phases of the same site, they are distinct applications, and there's ones for reserved matters and ones for full permission. So we are going to take the items separately, so it's a clear distinction in the decisions, but obviously there will be a slight amount of overlap there, but we will take these two items. So we'll go to item 12 first and hand over to William.
Thank you, Chair. My name's William Simcock and I am the case officer for this application. This application has been reported to the Strategic Committee partly because of a local ward member's request, but also because of significant level of local objection. To get one thing out of the way first, in the recommendation box at the top, it says that it will need to be referred to the Health and Safety Executive. This is no longer the case because, as I was notified by HSE a couple of days before this committee, the consultation zones associated with the Syngenta site have changed as of August last year. So it is now deemed to be in the outer zone, the lowest risk zone, not the middle zone. And as a result, HSE no longer have any objection to the development, and this has been saved on file. The few comments about the update. Officers decided that we will not be seeking sustainable transport contributions for this reserved matters application. Now, there isn't any absolute hard and fast set of rules about what can be the condition or be the subject of Section 106 agreement, only general principles. Paragraph 57 of the National Planning Policy Framework sets out the 3 tests that should be met if a planning obligation is to be sought. It is necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms directly related to the development and fairly and reasonably related in scale and kind to the development. Now, in general, sustainable transport contributions and funds for monitoring are considered to meet these tests if it is a full or outline application. If it is reserved matters, that is certainly more questionable, and officers have adopted the view that this is really more related to the principle of development rather than scale or layout. It is the sort of thing that would normally be conditioned at outline stage if it's an outline application, but it is considered that it would not be appropriate to seek it here at reserved matter stage, and following the approach that was followed in the Shop Lane application, where it was also not the subject of Section 106 agreement at outline stage. To introduce the application, it is land that's on the outskirts of the settlement of Kirklees. This is an aerial view of the site. This is the site that's now currently considered as a reserved matters application. This is phase 2 of the same development, a separate application which I'll come to presently when it's time to present it. Here is a three-dimensional aerial view. The site area is approximately this part here, the upper part of this pasture land. The area down here is part of the full application, which is presented separately. And here we see the general layout of the site. The site is at present mainly open pasture land, some scrub and trees near the site borders, and these are views across the site from Cockley Hill Lane. This one is near the bottom end of the site, looking back up towards the village. And at present there is no formal vehicular access to the site. It is proposed that a new vehicular access be formed here, which would then result in the layout of a new estate road, which would go in a loop to the north and then back to the south again, and ultimately serve both phases of the development. Another notable feature of the site is its steep gradients. These are predominantly east to west, that is, a fall from east to west, which I've referred to in my report, and has been a determining factor in the design and layout. There's further open pasture and scrub beyond the southeastern boundary. The site is a housing allocation and benefits from outline permission for up to 60 dwellings associated works. The number of dwellings that was eventually decided upon, 54, slightly lower than originally suggested. This is mainly because of the need to deliver a feasible road layout, including servicing arrangements. This is the combined or master plan layout for both phases of the proposed Cockley Hill development. This one, the reserved matters, this the full application, and here the Shop Lane application, the former Fine Worsteds, which has been actually approved. The houses, which I'll show you, it would include some quite substantial changes to ground level, including land raising in places. This is necessary to account for the sharp changes in ground level across the site. This could also be seen on the sections here. The house types chosen are mostly a mixture of detached and semi-detached, and there are some house types have included here by way of illustration, and they include a mix of 2, 3, and 4 bedroom houses. And most would be reliant on external parking spaces only, and it is proposed that 11 units altogether would be affordable. The changes have been made during the application to accommodate servicing arrangements, and the application was republicised in 2 phases as a result. Now, in assessing this application, considerable weight should, of course, be placed on the need to boost housing provision, especially in the context of the Council's present inability to demonstrate a 5-year housing supply, and furthermore, the principle of development for up to 60 units has already been established. A master planning approach has been adopted, as we've seen from the combined layout. The site will, of course, connect directly with what is the intended phase 2, and also indirectly with the Shop Lane site, briefly mentioned earlier. Considering the Council the necessity to ensure a suitable housing mix and balance, compared to the recommended housing mix and balance for this sub-market area, is classed as part of Huddersfield South, it is somewhat below the recommended level of provision of 2-bedroom houses, and this is true even for the 2 phases put together. However, the reserve matters up for the site on Shop Lane, which is a project of the same developer, and does contain a greater proportion of 2-bedroom houses. If all 3 schemes or 3 applications are considered together, the provision of 2-bedroom houses is 33 out of 124, or just under 27%. This still falls a little below the recommended threshold of 30%, 1 to 2 bedroomed. Considering the challenges in developing this site, including the necessary earthworks and retaining structures, as well as contamination, coal mining legacy issues already referred to, and of course the clearance costs for the Shop Lane site, it is considered that we have an acceptable mix of housing types and the best scheme realistically achievable, given the need to ensure that the schemes are commercially viable. 2 houses in this phase are built according to the Lifetime Homes standards, which is designed to ensure greater standards of accessibility and for people at all stages in life, including people in later life who are experiencing reduced mobility. And this is not actually set out as a formal requirement in the housing mix and balance, but it is considered to be a bonus and a point in the scheme's favour. The affordable element of the scheme offers a 36-64% split in favour of 3-bedroom houses. Part 5 of the Housing Mix and Balance SPD recommends that at least 40% should be 1 to 2 bedroom, 40% of the affordable units. However, this is in accordance with the terms of the Section 106 agreement concerning affordable housing that was entered to at the outline stage, and strategic housing raised no concerns about the mix in terms of housing type. The site is within a location considered suitable for residential development. It's accessible, lying within an established settlement, proposed access points within 200 metres of Kirklees local centre, providing various local amenities, and at least some, if not all, of the daily economic, social and community needs of residents can therefore be met within the area surrounding the application site. It is therefore regarded as a sustainable location. The site entrance, furthermore, is approximately 200 metres from the bus terminus at the junction of Town Road and Heaton Moor Road, providing a twice-hourly service throughout most of the day. It is considered to have moderate public transport accessibility, enabling at least some journeys to undertake without the use of the private car, although, again, it should be emphasised the principle of development has already been established. The adequate cycle storage position has been shown within the proposed layout. This can be secured by condition, including details of design. A scheme of electric vehicle charging points was already secured at condition at the outline stage. To move on to urban design and appearance, an established development line close to the eastern and northern western edges of the site consists mainly of terraced housing in short rows, date mainly from the 19th century, which includes both roads backing onto the site and some where the gable end of the road faces the site. And there is also some small modern developments comprising 4 detached houses on large plots, which can be seen here, just on the edge of the image. The proposed development would not be linked to any of this established development by direct vehicular access routes, and can therefore be considered a largely self-contained site. And for this reason, it's considered it doesn't need to closely mimic the layout, built form or design details of the established development. The proposed dwellings are considered to be an appropriate scale, being 2-storey within an area comprising mainly 2-storey houses, and would therefore not dominate their surroundings. It's considered that the layout and density development would provide a suitable transition between the high density development near the core of the village and open countryside further south. At least that is when it is considered in the context of the development of phase 2. The proposed road layout is considered to be a rational way of maximising the development potential of the site, taking into account existing natural variations in levels. It is noted that there would be a high retaining wall separating the higher and lower plots, as has already been shown on the sectional views, and this marks the position of the retaining wall. It would, however, form the division between neighbouring back gardens and not between residential plots and the street. It is therefore considered acceptable, and it would avoid the need to have either very steep road gradients, which would not be acceptable from a highway safety point of view, or having a large number of small retaining walls throughout the site, which would not necessarily be an improvement in terms of appearance and design, and would also be less efficient because of the land take required. The proposed dwellings themselves are to be considered of modern traditional appearance, that is, they would not closely mimic the existing local vernacular, but they would in some ways at least reference it, in that they would have a simple built form, symmetrical double pitched roof, gutters supported by corbels, windows that are quite typical of the surrounding area in terms of placement and proportions. Walling and roofing materials are not specified within the supporting documents. The use of regular coarse natural stone as a principal walling material would be on the whole preferred, but a high quality artificial stone may be acceptable here, and it is recommended that the submission of materials for inspection be conditioned as part of an approval. Now, very few trees were scheduled for removal within the development. Those that are of low amenity value and their loss is judged to be outweighed by the benefit of the development. The development would also not jeopardise the replacement of trees on the site boundaries, including these here, for example, and here. The proposed scheme for phase 1, that is, does not contain a lot of landscaping in the site other than domestic gardens. There is some leftover space at the site margins, which, particularly the western margin, between the outer retaining wall and site boundary, and small pockets of space elsewhere, which is shown on the landscaping master plans being sown with species-rich grass. Phase 2 contains a larger proportion of new and retained landscaping. Considering the scheme as a whole, it is considered that a satisfactory amount of landscaping is provided, taking into account the need to make efficient use of the site. It is considered that despite some parts of the development being raised up above natural ground levels, the separation distances are such that impact would on existing properties or those within the scheme would not be overbearing. The satisfactory separation distances to safeguard privacy would be maintained, and the minimum 21 metre window to distance between habitable room windows would be maintained. Floor space within the development exceeds, often substantially, the recommended minimum set out in the nationally described space standards. Garden depth and size, although some gardens would be smaller than others, and there would be some impact due to overshadowing by retaining walls, is on balance considered acceptable. It's considered that a high quality private amenity space would be delivered, and that a high standard of amenity overall would be achieved for future residents. The principle of access, moving on to highway safety issues, has already been accepted. It is now serving, it's intended to serve 83 dwellings, which the original outline did not envisage. Paragraph 115 of the National Planning Policy Framework adds that development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety, or if the cumulative impacts of the road network would be severe. The highways statement by Paragon predicts the number of journeys that would be generated by the scheme as a whole if both phases were built. The internal layout has been designed in accordance with the Council's Highway Design Guide SPD, following negotiations on the internal estate road, including ensuring it's suitable for adoption in terms of suitable gradients, appropriate visibility displays, and levels of off-street parking, including visitor parking. Conditions are being recommended, such as a full scheme of adoptable estate roads and cross-sectional information for retaining walls, as is standard. The applicant also demonstrated that refuse collection vehicles would be able to access all parts of the site. Private parking has been incorporated at the normal rate, 2 per dwelling, or 3 per dwelling where it's a 4-bedroomed house, and visitor parking has been provided at the appropriate rate of an average of one per 4 dwellings. The various other conditions, the construction management plan was already a conditions outline stage. Highways Development Management advised that a highway condition survey be undertaken and secured via condition. It would include a review of the state of local highway network before development commences, and a post-completion review with a scheme of remediation works to address any damage that has been attributed to construction traffic. So, in conclusion, it is considered that safe access to the existing adopted public highway network can be obtained, and that the internal layout is in all respects satisfactory. Drainage and flood risk has been highlighted as a local concern. It is noted that there's the drainage design has been developed to take account of the existing field drainage, as well as drainage arising from the water runoff arising from the new development. There's the discharge from both of these would be to a culverted watercourse west of Shop Lane. However, any new drainage for hard surfaces arising from drainage for roofs, parking spaces and roads will pass through an attenuation basin, which is shown here. The maintenance and management of the approved surface water drainage system, until formally adopted by a statutory undertaker, recommended should be secured by Section 106 agreement, as this is generally regarded as good practice for large housing developments. Foul water drainage will be to confined sewer. The outline application was supported by a preliminary ecological appraisal comprising a desk-based study, and it concluded the main habitats within the site had limited ecological value, but that trees and hedgerows would be of relatively high value to birds, bats and invertebrates. Condition was imposed in the outline which remains enforceable to provide details of ecological enhancement prior to commencement of development. The requirement to deliver a formal 10% biodiversity net gain cannot be retrospectively applied at the reserve matters stage, and it is recommended no further survey work be required predetermination here. And also I have briefly covered in my report air quality and land stability, for which there are no outstanding issues, is considered, and crime mitigation, for which there are no specific concerns, although it can be covered by general condition. In conclusion, the site is both a housing allocation and already has an outline permission. It is considered that the layout of the development is a logical response to the site's constraints. It achieves a good mixture of housing types, and the principle of development for 54 units is considered acceptable. All aspects of design and appearance are considered acceptable, and would support the aims of upholding visual amenity and local character. And the proposed access and highway impacts are found to be acceptable, and other issues as drainage, ecology and tree protection are addressed through the proposal. It would provide an enhancement to local affordable housing, which has already been secured by Section 106 agreements. In conclusion, the application has been assessed against relevant policies and under the material considerations, and it is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we have the agent, Laura Meffam. You've got 3 minutes. There's a timer down here, so I'll let you start.
Good afternoon. My name's Laura Mepham and I'm representing the applicant here today. The applicant's landholding in Kirklees comprises of 3 parcels. The 2 applications which are before you today on Cockley Hill Lane and Shop Lane, which is the former site of the Huddersfield Fine Wustards, which has a recently approved reserve matters consent for 41. We thought it important when looking at the sites that they are considered holistically in terms of master planning and design, given their prominence within the settlement, and how they will integrate and what benefits they can bring. Of the 2 parcels, Parcel 1 has the benefit of outline planning consent, establishing the principle of development for which this application seeks reserves matters approval for 54 dwellings. Parcel 2 is also a housing allocation for which we are seeking full planning consent for 29 dwellings, which is a cumulative total of 83. Our key master planning and design aims for the application sites was to promote health and well-being, provide green space comprising of amenity space, play space and active travel connections. The proposed vehicular access to the application site is to be taken from Cockley Hill Lane, and this was approved as part of the outline planning consent. Given that Phase 2 will also utilise this access, prior to the application being submitted, the scope was a scoping note was submitted to Highways in order to inform what information was needed with the planning application to demonstrate that there could be an intensification of the approved access. As part of the planning application, we've prepared an updated transport note, a road safety audit for the junctions and the internal highway arrangement. We've also provided long sections of the internal highway through the site and demonstrating that forward visibility and car parking can be provided. The existing public right-of-way, which runs from Cockley Hill Lane through to Orchard Road, is to remain in situ. Existing trees to the western boundary and the group TPOs to the eastern boundary of both sites are to be retained with the required standoff distance provided.
It's also worth considering that the Shop Lane site, as consented, provides a substantial area of green space within the heart of Kirklees, which could function as a village green. This area provides amenity, including retaining TPO'd trees. Here, the existing public right-of-way is retained, with an additional pedestrian path weaving through.
Thank you. You've had 3 minutes. Sorry. Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we haven't got any other speakers, so I'll open it to members now. Yeah, Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've been on the site visit this morning, and we look around the site as well. Chair, this is application is an outline application, or I mean granted any.
This is so it's got outline.
Yeah.
This is for reserve matters, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a matter application. I think we have a good mixture of houses, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and the 4 bedroom, which I think meet the needs of the local community over there. Single family, a family, 3 bedroom. As officer has explained it very well, the site is in the housing allocation site. Yeah? It's very difficult to say or to refuse this application on any, unless we have any difficult issues on there. Well, I'm thinking in favor of this application. We need houses. It's 55 houses there, and the site is, as we have seen this morning, over there is just like a derelict site. It's not well maintained, the plot, the site there. And I heard this morning the right of way that will be kept it as it is, and some of the trees will be retained. That's the main thing which I'm looking. So I'm happy to approve the officer recommendation. I think it's going to health and safety if we approve this application.
So,
Thank you.
So you're moving the office?
I'm moving to
officer. That's
yeah.
fine. William said that the health and safety have removed their objection, so...
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very interesting application if you take the 2 sites together. You're a straight line that goes between them, and it seems to cut it at a very strange angle. However, we are talking about the reserve matters application alone at the moment. I would like to second Councillor Sokol's proposal, but I would also like to ask, because water attenuation arrangements are associated with the other application, but as I understand it, intended to serve both parts of it. So do any temporary arrangements need to be put in place if this application is built first, which I understand it's possible it might not? And can I be reassured that if temporary arrangements for water disposal of whatever kind are required, are they in the list of conditions? Thank you.
Yeah. Can you answer that question now?
Yes, through you, Chair. I'd like to say I understand Councillor Pinnock's the concern about discharge of water and what might happen if phase 1 was completed but phase 2 wasn't. In fact, on the outline permission, this condition 16 says no pipe discharge of surface water from the application site shall take place until works to form a satisfactory outfall for surface water have been completed in accordance with the details to be submitted and approved in writing with the local planning authority before development commences. So that condition remains in force, and it is quite close to the standard wording we use now, so that is enough to cover it.
Okay, it's condition. Councillor Armour?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As colleagues have commented, we're really quite constrained because of the nature of the application and what we can and can't talk about. Most of it's already accepted, principal development, etc. Frankly, I think it's not the best solution to the problems we face, but I think it's a solution that we are stuck with in this particular case. So I will, I'm afraid reluctantly, but I will be supporting the application. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. So we've had move and seconder for approving the officer's recommendation. Sheila, so happy to move to the vote on that.
So you're voting on approval, subject to the removal of the reference to the Health and Safety Executive, and also subject to the removal of Part 1 of the Section 106 agreement about sustainable transport. Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Anwar?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Armour?
For.
Councillor Homewood?
For.
That's carried, Chair, unanimous.
Okay, thank you. So, William, we'll move on to the second phase now. So, we're on to agenda item 13, the next 29 dwellings.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application, as has already been pointed out, is the amounts the second phase of a larger scheme. And members will, of course, now be familiar with the general layout of the sites and how they relate to each other. This is the aerial view. And in this, the three-dimensional aerial view, the phase 2, so the application now being considered, will comprise roughly this area here, north of the belt of trees, and also this area here, which is proposed as an attenuation basin. And moving on to the layout of the site, it is of course going to be a continuation of the 54 dwelling reserve matters, and although it will be in some ways it will be different, it will contain a greater proportion of landscaping, public open space. As it is mainly open pasture land, but there are some areas of scrub, marshy grassland and trees, and there's a belt of trees along the eastern part of the southern boundary, continue across the middle of the site, and again there is falling ground levels from east to west or northeast to southwest. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 29 dwellings, formation of access, public space, attenuation and associated infrastructure. They would comprise 10 pairs of semi-detached houses and 9 detached. The southernmost part of the site would host the attenuation basin, which is forming part of the drainage infrastructure serving the entire site. This would, while the greater part of the site actually lies within a housing allocation, the proposed attenuation basin is within the green belt, which I shall come to that in a few minutes. So there's been modifications to the application within the process. It was originally going to be more intensely developed. It has been reduced in scale, reduced in quantum, that is, partly to allow the retention of most of the trees and semi-natural vegetation, including this little triangle of woodland here, as well as the belt of trees adjacent to the border, and to create some public open space here. Now, to move on to the issue of the appropriateness of the development given the allocation of the land. The Chapter 9 of the National Planning Policy Framework states that the construction of new buildings is inappropriate in the green belt. It does, however, state that in the following paragraph that engineering operations and material change of use of land are not inappropriate as long as they preserve the openness of the green belt and do not conflict with the purposes of including land within it. That part of the application site falling within the green belt would not be used for building houses or associated access roads, but for the formation of the attenuation basin for surface water drainage. This operation, as noted, would result in some change to the character of this part of the site owing to the inevitable regrading works involved. It would not involve the layout of large areas of hard standing, and the resulting development would have a more engineered and more artificial appearance than the existing pasture land, but it is considered it wouldn't appear as a strident or jarring feature in the surrounding open countryside. Its appearance would be softened by proposed tree planting. While it is considered it would have a small negative impact on the openness of the green belt, this would make it inappropriate development according to paragraphs 1.52, 1.3, which should not be approved except in very special circumstances. That is, if it can be shown the potential harm to the green belt by reason of inappropriateness and any other harm resulting from it is clearly outweighed by other considerations. In this instance, it's considered the harm to the openness of the green belt would be slight. The development would not undermine the purposes of the green belt as set out in paragraph 143 of the NPPF. And furthermore, the development of this attenuation basin would be crucial to the development of a housing proposal in that it would provide a safe, sustainable means of surface water disposal for both phases. In view of the current significant undersupply of housing land highlighted elsewhere in the officer's report, considerable weight must be placed on this factor. It is considered, therefore, that the above test is passed and that the minor harm to the openness of the green belt would be clearly outweighed by other considerations. Of note, the Council has previously accepted certain drainage infrastructure proposals within the green belt where they support adjacent residential development on allocated sites. One example being the Bradley Villa Farm site, reference 2021 92086. The site layout proposed in the context of the other two adjacent proposals provides a master planning approach. It provides full connectivity by means of vehicular routes with the allocation to the north, which is going to be phase 1. And it also provides connectivity for pedestrians with this area here and with Shop Lane. I will zoom in a little bit at this point. There is a public right-of-way that either lies adjacent to or crosses the site. This indicated just here by a faint dashed blue line. most of it would not be in any way directly affected by the development. Where it crosses the site, its route has been suitably preserved and formalised at a 2 metre wide footpath. It briefly crosses the turning head here. Again, it continues as a 2 metre wide track here and ultimately continuing to Shop Lane. There is a further alternative pedestrian route through the development and connecting with the landscaped area that formed part of the approved Shop Lane proposals. The number of units delivered as part of this scheme is below the indicative capacity of the site. For the reasons set out in detail in the report, it would not be realistic or desirable to achieve the indicative capacity, partly because we would not want to lose these belts of trees. It is therefore considered to make the most appropriate use of the site possible. Furthermore, it provides a suitable transition between built development and open land. The provision of 2-bedroom homes is proportionally higher for this phase than phase 1. This is an issue I've explored in depth in the reports and in my presentation for the proposed phase 1 reserve matters, and it is considered that a satisfactory mix of housing types is achieved given the site constraints. It is also proposed there will be 6 affordable units, which amounts to a proportionate amount of affordable housing given the overall size of the site. To move on to highway transport and accessibility issues, it would of course make use of the access point, the new access point from Cockley Hill Lane, which has been designed taking into account that it would serve 83 dwellings, and it is judged acceptable for this purpose and able to take on the traffic generated. And it is proposed that a small footway would be formed on this part of the site frontage. As previously discussed, the site is considered to be a sustainable location from the point of view of accessibility to shops and services and public transport routes. The promotion of carbon reduction and climate change resilience should be achieved as an integral part of the new build for all full and outline housing applications, and may include, but not be limited to, energy efficiency measures in excess of those mandated by the building regulations, or micro-generation technology such as solar panels and heat pumps, and this, it is recommended, will be secured by condition. It is considered the layout, again, it would contain fairly substantial retaining walls. It is considered that this represents a rational response to the site's context and, again, responds positively to the need to ensure there is an appropriate transition between built development and open land. It avoids the disadvantages of very low net density, and similar to 8 to 10 Knoll Road, for example, but also avoids an excessively high density, resulting in an abrupt change from built development to open and semi-natural land, and creating too hard an edge to the settlement. The proposed dwellings, and I shall scroll down to show the site, the sort of specific house types here are similar to those proposed to phase 1, although a slightly different mix, again, and are 2-storey. The arboricultural officer, trees officer, has confirmed that there's no objection to the proposal, subject to a pre-commencement condition for a finalised arboricultural method statement. The all important or valuable trees within the site would be retained. And it would provide formally laid out public open space, including a play area near the southwestern part of the site, and a walkable route providing a link with other public open space and Shop Lane. It is therefore considered it maximises the quality and usability of new public open space provided, and by increasing opportunities for outdoor recreation, it would support the aims of local plan policy LP47, healthy, active and safe lifestyles, as well as principles within the House Builder Design Guide, SPD. The standard requirement for public open space generated as proposal would still not be fully met by the proposed on-site provision, taking a master planning approach, and it is recommended the shortfall to addressed via an off-site contribution to be secured by Section 106 agreement. The recommended minimum distances between existing and new development will be adhered to, and again, it is considered that the proposed earthworks and retaining walls would not have an overbearing impact on residential properties. And to the south and east of the site, the tree belts would provide a buffer zone between the developed part of the site and 74 and 60 Cockley Hill Lane. Again, all house types would have a floor space meeting or exceeding the recommended minimum standards. And as with the phase 1, standards of amenity for the future occupants and including garden size are considered to be satisfactory. To summarise, the proposed development is considered to result in an aesthetically attractive scheme and not to result in detriment to the amenity of neighbouring residents, while securing a suitable standard of amenity for future residents. Sufficient off-street parking for each type of dwelling is provided, as well as a bin storage area for within each dwelling's curtilage for 3 refuse containers. Excuse me. And again, the recycling provision, a framework travel plan has been submitted for this application. Casey Highways Development Management have assessed the application and concluded that conditional approval can be given subject to a full travel plan to be secured by condition, and to the developer entering into Section 106 agreement to provide sustainable contributions, subject to £28,000 and a travel plan monitoring contribution of £10,000. The site was subject to a preliminary ecological appraisal, which found that dated July 2023. This found that habitats within the site comprise modified grassland, other neutral grassland and broadleaf woodland with hedgerows and some site boundaries. And it concluded that while the site may have some value, it was to common farmland and urban fringe bird species, it was assessed unlikely to be suitable for ground nesting birds, since they would be disturbed by local residents walking their dogs. It also recommended that much of the existing vegetation should be retained. And the biodiversity net gain assessment submitted at the same time as the PEA identified an overall net gain of 10% habitat units on site, and it set out how this is to be achieved. Overall, the development provides an opportunity, subject to a biodiversity enhancement management plan to be secured by condition, to enhance habitats and increase their value, such as and preserve existing ones, such as the woodland in the southern section of the site. A legal agreement to secure off-site biodiversity net gain will not be required in this instance. I set out in my report the matters that will need to be covered by Section 106, the securing of units on site as affordable housing, and that these be retained as housing stock in perpetuity, the provision of public open space, and excuse me, the public open space contributions, which I think I've already mentioned, and sustainable transport contributions. The KC Education have not requested a provision towards school places, as it is not necessary for this development in this location. And finally, as again the Section 106 agreement must include terms for the provision of long-term maintenance and management of water drainage features, it is considered that the risk of contamination owing to past use is low and can be adequately addressed by the imposition of standard conditions, requiring a Phase 1 report with follow-up reports if appropriate, as recommended by Environmental Health. The submitted geotechnical report, intrusive coal mining risk assessment, has been prepared to a high standard. The Coal Authority expresses no objection to the development and did not recommend any conditions, while advising the applicant that careful consideration will need to be given to the foundations for new development. It is considered that placing due weight on the Coal Authority's comments and on paragraphs 189 to 190 of the National Planning Policy Framework, further coal mining or geotechnical reports will not be required, and any remaining issues on the site can be addressed by the developer. In conclusion, this is a full application on site that does not benefit from existing outline planning permission, although it is deemed suitable for residential development, as it is, as the developable part of the site lies within a housing allocation. It is considered that a suitable quantum of development has been achieved, and it achieves an appropriate mixture of housing types, a layout that will function well, and a gentle transition to open land. It would also provide safe access to the highway network and avoid material harm to the amenity of neighbouring residents or future occupiers. It would provide an enhancement in relation to affordable housing and open space, as previously detailed. It is therefore considered that development would constitute sustainable development and is therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions and planning obligations to be secured via Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Laura, would you like to make a representation on this item as well?
No, I don't think I've got anything to add, thank you.
Just take what you said from the first one. That's fine, thank you. Okay, members? Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. Some of what I said earlier applies to this site. It's quite a good example of how you deal with two parts of a jigsaw puzzle, if you like, and I think it performs well in that sense, and quite a lot of thought has gone into the way of designing the road layout so that it works for both parts of the site, and I'm quite satisfied with the recommendations, particularly the Section 106 contributions, because they will ensure, I hope, that all the things do actually happen. Well, they are legal agreements after all. I suppose the one about which one might be slightly concerned is the drainage arrangements, but I mean, I just wonder whether there's any possibility that having to form a management organisation for the drainage, whether there are any risks associated with that. I mean, I'd like to move approval. I just need some reassurance about that point, if that's possible.
Yeah, Councillor Circle, do you want to go first? And then...
Yeah, Chair, I agree with Councillor Andrew Pinnock. I'm happy to second it. Yes.
Do you want to comment on the yeah, the drainage tank.
The management plan.
The management plan, yeah.
Thank you, Chair, but the drainage issues are covered by recommended conditions on the report and also by the, again, the proposed Section 106 agreement, and I'm at this stage, I don't think there's anything I can say to really expand on that.
Matthias, you want to add to that as well?
Yeah. Thanks, Will. I think you're getting at what happens if the residents don't form a management company. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, they'll be obligated to as part of their sale, because it runs with the land, the Section 106, and they become landowners, in effect. It's pretty commonplace for privately owned estates these days to have their drainage that isn't for the highway privately owned. The normal mechanism is they pay a surcharge each year that goes into an organisation that comes and maintains the asset. Yorkshire Water can also be brought in to adopt some of the features, and that'll be worked through as part of the drainage company. But ultimately, we've got a legal position to enforce because it's in the legal agreement, as William's identified. So, should it need to be dealt with, the council has an enforceable position.
Sorry, Chair. Well, I was just slightly concerned if there was any question of the failure of a management company in that sort of circumstance. What responsibility does the authority have then?
Not a huge deal. It's private land, fundamentally, so it runs with the landowner's responsibility. Most people get these schemes adopted by Yorkshire Water. That's what generally happens 9 times out of 10. I haven't come across a situation where there has been a failure of a management company. I'm not saying it can't happen, but generally they seem to work pretty consistently.
Okay, thank you. So we've had move and seconder to approve the application of the recommendation. Sheila?
So you're voting on approval of the application. Just for clarity, there was an additional condition included in the update about full details of the finished floor and ground levels within the site. There was also an amendment in the Section 106 to the amount for sustainable transport. So that's what you're voting on. Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Anwar?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Armour?
For.
Councillor Homewood?
For.
That's carried, Chair, unanimous.
Sorry, was that? Yeah, item 14. William, move back to you to present this one.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for a site on the edge of Grange Moor, and it is also a housing allocation. Oh. Sorry, I forgot to put share on. Yes, this is the location plan for the site, and this is the view within the wider context. It is on the eastern edge of the settlement of Grange Moor. It's a near level site consisting mainly of grass and scrub, and with no steep gradients. There is no formal vehicular access to the site at present. This is a view from the highway looking towards the site, and this is a view from within the site looking back towards the end of Urban Terrace. There are a range of housing types within the local area. This is the public right-of-way that runs adjacent to the site. The proposal is that 10 dwellings would be erected within the site and a new vehicular access and estate road formed. This would, as can be seen, it contain 2 turning heads and a spur to the northeast, which would potentially allow the development of this other allocation to the northeast, although it should be emphasised that this would be subject to the agreement of the landowner, and that since they are in separate ownership. Furthermore, it has not been conclusively demonstrated that this would be the only safe way of gaining access to this other allocation. The house types would consist of a mix of true bungalows, dormer bungalows and 2-storey houses. This gives a more detailed picture of the general layout of the site. This is, well, the provisional landscape of the site would contain 2 small areas of public open space. This area here would also contain the attenuation tank for drainage purposes. The house types proposed can be seen here. And would and a mix of house types. Now, notwithstanding the absence of a current wider master plan, it is an important consideration at this stage to ensure that development here would also not hinder the future development of neighbouring allocations, which it is considered that this criterion will be satisfied. Regarding the quantum of development of the site, the indicative capacity of the site is 22 dwellings. Now, it is not generally expected that all or most housing allocations will be built up to or exceeding their indicative capacity, as this will depend on many factors, including physical constraints and also the need to ensure development that will respect the character of its surroundings. However, in this instance, it is noted that the development proposed 10 units will be less than half the indicative capacity of the site proposed. Kirklees has a finite supply of land for the delivery of houses. The 31,140 new homes required during the local plan period. There is a need to ensure that land is sufficiently sustainably used, having regard to all relevant planning considerations, to ensure that the borough's housing delivery targets are met. Underuse of allocated development land, which is in short supply, could potentially contribute towards development pressure elsewhere at less appropriate sites, including at sites where sustainable development is harder to achieve. Any proposal at application sites capable of accommodating major development should be expected to make a significant contribution towards the quanta set out in the local plan. Now, several constraints have been highlighted by the developer: public sewers crossing the site which require an easement, potentially contaminated land, and the site being located within a coal referral area with 3 identified mine entrances on the site. It is acknowledged that the mine entrances or shafts can present challenges to development, and our officers are also mindful of the need to deliver a form of development that both respects local character and conserves the amenities of existing future occupants, and also doesn't compromise the development potential of adjacent land as a result of overlooking at close quarters, which are all examined in detail in the report. It is, however, considered that development of the site with only 10 units is suboptimal, and that a larger number of units can and should be aimed for in the interest of making efficient use of the land. Such a scheme can be designed to reflect typology surrounding the site and could also include bungalows. In the absence of such a proposal, and in view of the significant undersupply of housing land at the present time, it is considered that the proposed quantum of development is unacceptable, and the proposal in its current form is therefore not supported by officers. The applicant has provided a map of housing constraints, including the mine entrance is shown on this map. There's and housing cannot be built directly above a mine entrance. However, officers have considered alternative ways the site could be developed which would allow a greater number of units on site. There is the potential to increase the number of units on the site frontage. For example, there could be 3 or even 4 pairs of small semi-detached houses here. It might involve the removal of this house here, because otherwise there might be an undesirable degree of overlooking, but that would represent a net increase. Also, as I've set out in detail, there are the opportunities to increase the number of units on the northern part of the site. The Kirklees dwelling mix analysis technical note finds that there is an unmet demand for bungalows within the housing market area, as the applicant has highlighted. While it is broadly correct to say that across Kirklees there is an undersupply of bungalows, in that bungalows as a percentage of the total housing stock are below the percentage required to supply the housing mix indicated by projected demand. The technical note finds, however, that the undersupply of 2-bedroom bungalows is less severe in this sub-market area, Kirklees Rural East, than in other housing market areas within Kirklees, and there's even a very small oversupply of 3-bedroom bungalows. And furthermore, the dwelling mix analysis technical note does not have the status of an adopted supplementary planning document, and therefore cannot carry the same weight as the local plan allocation and the Affordable Housing and Housing Mix SPD. So whilst the proposal does assist in meeting an unmet demand for bungalows, it is considered the matter attracts limited weight in the planning balance. And furthermore, again, the developing the site at a higher density would not necessarily mean eliminating bungalows. To examine the transport and highway aspects of the proposal, the site is considered to be moderately sustainable as it lies within the existing established settlements. It benefits from an approximately twice-hourly bus service connecting Wakefield and Huddersfield, and Grangemore does not possess many amenities or facilities, although there is a local primary school, and as well as employment opportunities. It is considered that the level of amenity for future residents would be acceptable, and there are no concerns about that. However, the means of access to the adopted highway is satisfactory. There are, however, unresolved concerns about the internal layout of the site. The application contains shared bin presentation or collection points here and here. Now, if the entire layout were designed so that a refuse collection vehicle would be able to enter the site and turn around and collect from the site, this would not be a problem. However, this is not the case. It is not designed to an adoptable standard. The distance from the collection point to refuse collection vehicle as specified in British standards should be no more than 15 metres. However, the Kirklees Council, as Waste Collection Authority, is empowered to set its own standards, and our own policy is that drag distance from the bin collection point to refuse collection vehicle should not exceed 10 metres and should preferably be no more than 8 metres. The drag distance from the householder's own waste storage point to the presentation or collection point should also not exceed 25 metres. So a layout that requires refuse collection workers to drag bins more than 10 metres would, under Kirklees collection standards, not be acceptable. In response to concerns raised, the applicant put forward the proposals. The access road will be to an adoptable standard up to the first set of gates here, and a private waste collection service will be organised for dwellings beyond the gates. And the latest layout here shows an additional 2 metre wide footway adjacent to plot 3. This small improvement is welcomed. However, the location of bin presentation points is unchanged. Now, as the council has a statutory duty to collect refuse from residential properties, and it cannot be guaranteed that any private refuse collection arrangement would be maintained as such in perpetuity, the applicant's alternative proposal for private refuse collection is not considered a satisfactory alternative. It must therefore either provide an internal route that is proven to be suitable for refuse collection vehicles, or ensure that refuse collection can be undertaken from the existing adopted highway in conformity with the standards set out in the Council's Waste Management Design Guide for New Developments. Since the waste collection arrangement of plot 4 to 10 would exceed the drag distance for operatives from Denby Lane, and as the layout fails to demonstrate that an 11.85 metre refuse collection vehicle can access the development and turn around in the vicinity of the bin collection points, the layout is considered unacceptable. I would add at this point that an additional concern raised that the gates would make access difficult for emergency vehicles is no longer considered to be a concern in this the developer has proposed an electronic override system, which would be an acceptable solution to that particular concern. Regarding other planning issues, officers have no specific concerns here about flood risk, biodiversity, or land contamination and instability. Issues of this nature could be resolved by the imposition of a condition where required, if officers were minded to approve. To conclude, the proposal seeks residential development on a housing allocation. Residential development here must be deemed acceptable in principle. However, by providing only 10 units on site with an indicative capacity of 22, and notwithstanding the very real physical constraints on the site, it fails to make efficient use of the land or optimise the development potential of the site, which is required by Local Plan Policy 7 and paragraphs 1.128, 129 and 135E of the National Planning Policy Framework. Whilst the local highway network is of a sufficient standard to take on the traffic generated, the proposed internal layout is considered unsatisfactory from the point of view of future servicing, in particular refuse collection, for the reasons already set out. The design and appearance of the proposed development is considered acceptable, although proposals could have been made in some respects. But for the reasons set out in depth, officers cannot support this scheme and recommend it for refusal.
Okay, thank you. So there's a few people to speak on this, but it's been referred to the committee by Councillor Taylor. So, Councillor Taylor, I'll let you go first. Speak. You've got 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to bring this before committee today. This is an interesting application, and there are some interesting tensions here between the demands of the community, the proposals of the developer, and obviously the planning team's concerns. And I want to try and address the two issues that we have. So there are two issues at play here. The first one is around the density of the site, and the second one is around, as we've just heard, the access arrangements and the internal layout of the road network and the accessibility for refuse vehicles. And I think what's important to reflect on here with this site is the challenges that the site itself sets out, which have partly been covered in the report that's before you. This is a coal mining area. This is where, the coal mining museum is a few hundred yards down the road. We are right on the edge of Kirklees here. There are a number of mine shafts on the site. They can't sit within the curtilage of any of the properties, because if they did, it would make those properties unmortgageable. So that is a significant constraint to the layout of the of the development and has led to the layout of the road. So it's trying to leave the houses and the associated gardens in an area where they're not constrained by those mine shafts. And that then leads to a compromise around, can we build the road in a way that at the northern, when you were looking at the map, the left-hand side of the plot, is there sufficient space to create a turning circle to enable a refuse vehicle to turn round? The only way you could do that would be, once again, compromising the properties in that northern end of the site. So for me, what we're saying is that they've come forward with a proposal that says a private refuse service would collect the bins. On the previous application, we just had the conversation around management committees, management companies that are set up for sites like this, which would be the same in this case, which would have the responsibility for ensuring that bin collection and for sourcing and commissioning the bin service. And there are a number of private waste companies locally that would be more than happy to take on that work. On the density issue, we're debating 1 or 2 houses here. That's literally all we're talking about. And what we've got is an application before you where we've got a local developer who's done everything we ask of them in terms of engagement with the community. They've been out, they've been talking to the community, they've been meeting with the community association, they've been talking to local councillors. They've done everything we would ask them to do to try and bring forward a plan, a proposal, a housing style and type that the community is supportive of. More often than not, before this committee, you get applications where the community are coming saying, we don't want it or we object to something. What you have before you today is one where they're saying, this is what we would like them to do. And the only 2 issues that there are is it 10 houses or is it 12? And are we happy that the developer and the people, the owners of these houses, when they buy these houses, will be able to put in place suitable arrangements for their bins to be collected? They're the 2 things that we are debating today. In terms of the housing type, there is a shortage of bungalows. In my comments in here, it talks about place standard. I've undertaken 3 place standard exercises within my ward. What comes out very strongly in those is the need for properties for people to downsize to as they age, and as their families move away, they become empty nesters, they've got family homes, and they want to stay in the areas where they live, want to stay in the communities where they live, and bungalows are the type of properties that they are looking for. These are smaller sized properties. They're not huge, big, enormous properties that are being proposed here. And I think what we need to do today is to look at this in the round, reflect those tensions that sit there between the need to deliver an adequate housing supply, but also the need to recognise and support developers who do the right thing, go out and engage with the community and get the community on side and supportive of a development, because sometimes that can be quite challenging. And I think I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Taylor. So next we've got David Bolger from the Grangemore Community Association. You've got up to 3 minutes to speak if you press that one. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. As you've just heard, the initial application was for 10 bungalows to be built on land northwest of Urban Terrace, Denby Lane, Grangemore. An alternative proposal is for 7 bungalows and 5 houses. We, as representatives of Grangemore Community Association, are in support of the original proposal of the 10 bungalow development. We do not support the alternative proposal of 7 bungalows and 5 houses. The reason being is one of road safety to pedestrians and other road users using Denby Lane in the vicinity of the proposed development. The 3 bungalow scheme leads to a lower density of parking on Denby Lane, as the smaller homes have less cars parked out in Denby Lane, as the homes are likely to have less cars in the household from the beginning, whereas the 3 and 4 bed family detached homes with integrated garage will lead to additional road parking, as the garage won't be used for a parking space. On this proposed development area of Denby Lane, There is no provision for pedestrian footpaths on either side of the road to service both the existing houses and the new proposed houses on the street parking. And other than parking on the proposed development site, there are no other areas to which cars can be parked safely. Households with 3 and 4 bedrooms will almost certainly be occupied with children who drive their own car, only to be able to commute to work from a village that is serviced by an already inadequate public transport system. Problems with road parking are not just for today, as we have seen in Grangemore, but in future years there will certainly be more congestion. Through the Community Association with local residents, there's a widespread approval of the proposed 10 bungalow plan, with many residents already voicing the fact that parking of vehicles and traffic volumes on Denby Lane currently cause concern for the safety of pedestrians and other car users. Also, there was a final report document by Kirklees Council going back to 2016 of the Strategic Housing Market Assessment by Mr. Michael Parham, highlights from the reports of the key sections showing the need for bungalows over other types of housing. The report concludes by saying in every measure the document shows there is a need for bungalows, particularly in the Kirklees rural east sub-area. And in addition, the market aspirations and expectations for the level of bungalows are currently not being met, so the proposal for 10 aims to satisfy some of this demand. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, do we want to after now or?
I'll just do it now, very quickly.
Okay. Matthias wants to make a comment.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification. This planning application's for 10 dwellings. There is no plan for 12 dwellings. There isn't a choice between a 10 or a 12. This is a single planning application for 10. Indicative plans have been shown for other uses, other numbers, but you have to consider 10. So you're not considering the difference between 10 and 12. I just need to be really clear, otherwise it'll start to muddy the waters and you need to focus on the plan that's in front of you today. Thank you for that, Chair.
Okay, the final speaker is Michael Parham, the agent.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Parham and I'm the agent acting on behalf of Yorkshire Country Properties for the application before committee today. The planning officer has diligently outlined the context of the site and the allocation of the site for residential development. The application seeks permission for 10 new residential bungalows in a mix of 2, 3 and 4 beds, with associated public open space and access. The applicant has engaged positively with local residents to reach a scheme which raises no objections and 8 letters of support, including the Grangemore Community Association. The submitted scheme is supported by the local community in its current form, and this forms the main area of conflict, which leads me to the first reason for the recommendation for refusal, the efficient use of land. It's undisputed that the site's physical constraints impact the delivery of the full allocation for 22 units. Bungalows have been selected as the house type, as this is in keeping with the character and built form of the buildings opposite, south of Denby Lane. There is also an identified shortfall for bungalows in the area. The development will contribute towards this need and provide an appropriate mix of 2, 3 and 4 bed bungalows. By their very nature, bungalows are land-hungry developments, which present a likely reason for the current shortfall. This layout ensures there are no undue impacts on privacy, distances, overshadowing to new or existing residents. The second reason for refusal relates to the collection of waste. The local waste collection allows for bin carry distances of 8 to 10 metres, whereas private waste collection company would allow for 25 metres, limits accepted in British Standard and National Manual for Streets. Therefore, a private waste collection has been arranged for serving plots 4 to 10, and waste will still be collected directly from Denby Lane or the first turning head. It is the legal responsibility of the management company to make sure this remains in perpetuity. The mine shafts and their zones of influence are located within the access road or public open space. If the layout was configured to provide an adoptable road past the first turning head, this would result in the loss of further units. In conclusion, engagement with the community is a core principle of our planning system. The applicant has been proactive and engaged positively with local residents. This rural housing development raises no objections and is supported by the community. Currently, Kirklees cannot show a housing land supply, and the land is allocated for housing in the local plan and can be delivered quickly. The officer suggests an additional 2 units could be possible on site. However, priority has been given to providing a high-quality development instead of compromising a poor-quality design, privacy for residents, and amenity. This is a high-quality scheme and will deliver much-needed housing. The bungalows relate well to the buildings south of Denby Lane, and public open space provides separation between the houses and supports the rural character of the area. The private road and waste strategy will function well for the lifetime of the development, and the scheme will contribute positively to the area. I ask members to listen to the local community and support this development, as it is supported by members of Grangemore.
Thank you. Okay, over to members. Councillor Armour, you want to speak first?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm a ward councillor. My ward includes Grangemore, so I know the site very, very well. I know the village. It's not an easy site to develop. It's got, I think it's 3 mine entrances within the area, and it is an eyesore. Indeed, I was elected 10 years ago now, and one of the first things that a resident of Grangemore raised with me was there's something needs doing about that land over there, which is this site. It's taken this long to get any sort of interest in developing the site. I have deliberately not engaged closely with village discussions about the site. I've decided that I didn't want to get closely engaged with them. What I do know is the indicative capacity, and it's accepted by officers. The indicative capacity is just not attainable for this site. It's a long, long way away from being attainable. I appreciate we are talking about 10 here and there's no alternative numbers, but I would hate to see this site rejected for the sake of they might be able to squeeze a bit more in if you tried. I don't think that would help the borough. I don't think it would help the village. And this extra couple of houses wouldn't make any difference. But I don't like the gated proposals. As I said earlier on this afternoon, I don't like them. I don't see the rationale for them. On the other hand, I am convinced by officer comments earlier about management companies. I'm convinced that we can overcome, or the developer rather, can overcome any refuse collection issues. We've been told it would be possible to arrange a management company. We've been told earlier by officers on a separate application that these management companies have to carry on. The residents would have to carry on funding a management company because the Section 106 requirement would transfer with the land. Therefore, it's not a matter the developer can say, right, those are the houses built, I'm away, forget about it, because the landowners, the purchasers, will have the legal responsibility. So we can overcome that. I think it would be a great shame to see what appears to me to be a high-quality scheme, which I think would enhance. It's a very, very small village, as Grangemore, and I think a scheme such as this would enhance that village. Yes, you can put forward different types of housing, you can put forward different densities, but they would not enhance the village. So I'll propose that we go against the officer recommendation and accept this application. Thank you.
Legal officer wants to go first.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to disrupt the flow of debate. It's just an important point because
Is that any better? Yeah. That sounds better, doesn't it? I just wanted to come in because Councillor Armour has
put forward a motion to grant permission, and I thought it was important to come in before that motion is seconded, because if that motion is seconded and is passed by this committee, you'll be granting a planning permission unconditional and with no Section 106 obligations attached to it. Now, it's of course not for the legal advisor to tell members how to conduct their business at this committee, but from my experience, I suspect that that proposition would be highly undesirable. So I just make that point now, that there are other ways that we can, if members are minded to go down that road, but I just caution you that if that motion as it is on the table were seconded and passed, then that would be the outcome of that.
Councillor Hammer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As we know, any motion, there can be amendments put towards it. So, and indeed, I could amend my own motion if I wished. So, I'll leave the motion, but I would hope to hear proposed amendments from colleagues, and I may come back before the final vote. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I can understand the points that Councillor Armour is making, but I disagree fundamentally with his interpretation of the facts. I don't think this is a high-quality development because going back to my earlier remarks about gated developments, if you have a development like this, I don't see how it can be high quality if it shuts a certain proportion of the community off from the rest of it. I just think it's an totally undesirable development, that sort of thing, because it's kind of putting a group of people into a separate box away from the rest of the community. And this is quite apart from the fact that as mentioned in the report, the road there is not to an adoptable standard. And one of the points, of course, that was made in relation to the earlier application is that not only did we think that the gated element of it was undesirable, because it was gated, it couldn't be adopted. The two things go together. And it does seem to me that rather than force a management company on the residents of these things in order to maintain their unadopted road, that the whole thing is properly adopted, and that the layout actually is shown to an adoptable standard properly. Now then, the officer's recommendation is to refuse this. I think what I'm going to propose is that we defer it, because I think I would like to know, because it's not clear from the plans that I've seen, where these mine entries are and what effect they could have on the way that any development on this site is actually laid out. I think that, and there is a sewer easement as well, I think, that crosses the site. It would be very helpful for us to have all that information available so that we can assess how it's going to work. I do think that a greater density can probably be got out of this site. But I need to know what some of the constraints are that are stopping that from happening. And rather than just go along with the officer's recommendation, I would rather postpone a decision on the application until we've had some of these extra features, so that we can work out what we think might be a way of doing it. Somebody may second that, but I'll.
Councillor Sokol, do you want to come in next?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I've been on the planning committee for many years. I always listen with the community members with interest. This is the best way to make a decision on our application, to keep in mind what the community's needs are, what the community are looking for. But Chair, on this planning application, I got some concern. The concerns are, it seems to me, a group of community members, they are trying to undermine the authority of our planning officers. Yeah? They don't want to listen planning officer, because planning have the duty to safeguard the planning issue. Planning officer says it's 10 dwelling or 10 bungalow is not sufficient. Yeah, we needed more than that. I'm not mentioned 12. Again, planning officer, including those highways, they have concern about the road safety, which is not adoptable, the proposing by the applicant. So I feel very strongly here, I listen some members of the applicant, they are undermining the authority of the planning officer, and officers have to work on the, or negotiate with the applicant, they have the guidance, planning guidance in front of them. Yeah, which is, I'm sorry to say, I'm not happy today what is happening here. In future applications, if we accept what the community group say here, then in future planning application we always be under pressure from the community group. Just listen to them, not to listen to the officers or guidelines they are working on. I think it's the best way forward is, Andrew, I was going to move to refuse this application, but I softened my language. Yeah, I listened to Andrew Pinnick. I think best way, let us defer this application and come back and renegotiation with the applicant. Thank you.
Is that a second?
Sorry, second.
Second that. Let me come round to the people now. Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Chair. As we seen this morning on the site visit, the vegetation and cutbacks need to be done if planning isn't granted today. I mean, it's a lovely site. I would like to see some bungalows on there. But there are a few concerns. I mean, 12 representations made, 18 support. And we've listened to residents here today and fellow ward councillors as well. My only concern is the waste management service. If it is private, they will still need a refuse one to go onto the estate. And as we've seen from the drawings and application, it will be a tight fit. So will the other residents that are already there, after a month of them 10 bungalows going in and people moving in, will the bins be brought onto the main road or not? We don't know. We can only assume so. So I think that's one of my main concerns. But however, I am willing, alongside Councillors Sochel and Pinnock, to support their recommendation of going back and revising the application between officers and the applicant.
Councillor Armour.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I listened to colleagues. In fact, my first note was to consider deferral. I changed my mind. I'm changing it back. I'll withdraw the motion to approve it. With your permission, sir. What I would like to do, though, is part of the process. I support deferral now, but I would like the developer to actually give very, very serious consideration to why it's necessary to put a gated community. Because I don't think it's necessary. I don't like them, as I said earlier. I would like to see that provision withdrawn, but that's obviously a matter for the developer. So I'm now in support of a motion to defer. Thank you.
Yeah, I just think, so I understand what people said about deferring. I think the only thing I'd just say from listening to what people said, you all had quite different reasons, I think, for why you thought you were deferring it, which wasn't very clear to me. So I think, Councillor Pinnock, you said that you wanted to understand about the limitations of the site, and presumably that was to do with the density. I think Councillor Sokol wanted defer because he wants the applicant to go away and change the plans, and I think you're talking about the gates. So I don't know if Natasha, you want to come in here, but I think there's a few differences of opinion there.
Yes, well summed up indeed, Chair. I mean, I listen very acutely to our members and our residents, and I absolutely understand it's rare for us to have an application here that's supported in this format, and officers to be saying it's not the right scheme. And I think the reason we're trying to say that is you do have a housing crisis, you have an objectively assessed need to deliver over 31,000 dwellings. Each of the allocations add up to how you get to 31,000, taking along the fact that some sites have constraints and you can't deliver the total number. You might get close to it, but if you deliver a significantly lower density, you exacerbate your housing problems. You don't deliver your objectively assessed affordable housing needs either, because it's only 10 dwellings and the level is 11. To set that to one side, we want to deliver places people are proud of and communities are proud of. So I think there is a scheme, and my personal view is there is a slightly denser scheme that still delivers the objectives of the developer and hopefully responds to what the local community want and can facilitate a scheme that perhaps isn't gated. However, that's my view. I really need the applicant to say whether they're prepared to do that or not, because you actually all do want us to go away and do something different, and I can't do something different for all of you. You have to tell me collectively, is it a different scheme with more numbers? Is it just the constraints? Is it just the highway and servicing arrangement? You're going to have to be precise to help us come back. Thank you.
Councillor Anwar.
Through you, Chair, could we put conditions in the deferral to go back?
So from an age perspective, I just suppose to answer that very specific point about whether you actually want whether you're willing to have those discussions, or whether you actually don't want us to make a decision.
Yeah, we'd be willing to amend the gates and have that as a condition, if that meant we could be side with an approval today.
Okay.
As per the previous application.
But not wider review of the scheme itself in terms of density and types of properties, etc.
Well,
it's not adoptable under the present.
Councillor Sokol, leave. Okay.
It's not only a gate, it's only density and the adoptable road as well. Yeah, thank you. We have to renegotiate that. Thank you.
Okay, just go on, Councillor Pinnock, if you wanted to come in.
Well, yes, I suppose I was talking a bit of shorthand when I spoke before, but it is a dissatisfaction with what's on offer. I think we need to look at it again, and part of that is knowing where the constraints actually are, which is why I emphasise that perhaps to the exclusion of other things. At the moment, the road that there is not to an adoptable standard, so that needs to be reimagined in any case, regardless of whether it has a gate on it. So.
Quickly, yeah, if it's okay.
Are we able to pull up the constraints plan showing the mine shafts on site as well as the easements, just so we can talk through them today?
Just if you, just just to add my comments to this. So I listened to what everybody said. I think there was a few things. So I think there was a point about this is sort of fits with the area. So I mean, I think that's to me is a little questionable because there was lots of different housing in that area, including terrace housing and all sorts. So I don't think specifically there needs to be bungalows on that site for that to be fitting with the area. Clearly, the gates are not fitting with the area because there's no other gated areas, and I don't understand how that applies. My kind of feeling on the density is what was said earlier. We're looking at the application we've got in front of us today. Basic logic tells you that if you built a little bit upwards as well as across, and the applicants themselves said that it was a land-hungry type of development, that clearly larger density can be created on that site regardless of the mining. I think that is pretty logical conclusion to come to, and I think William did actually point out the different when I was watching his presentation, did point out where the issues were on that and where the sites were. So I think we kind of did have that in the presentation from my perspective. So I suppose where we're at is obviously we've had it suggested for deferral, but I think if members want to make that forward, I think what the officer's saying is we just need to be really specific about what we're deferring for, because otherwise we'll be having the same discussion in a month's time. So I don't know if give you the option if you want to add a little bit more weight to exactly what we want to see.
I thought I'd said that, Chair. Sorry, I do think that we need to kind of look at it afresh. The constraints are one issue, which maybe weren't pointed out sufficiently on any plans that were shown, but I think we need to look at these to work out where you could alter it, because I do think a larger density, for all the reasons that Matthias has mentioned, that we should not be falling too far below the suggested levels.
Just before we bring you in, Chris, on this adoption. So, Councillor Sokol, Councillor Pinnock, you're advising deferral on the basis of looking at the constraints but looking to increase density by alternative design arrangements if that's achievable. Councillor Anwar, you want us to focus particularly on the adopted road layout and the gates and the servicing of refuge, which we can wrap up and Chris can come in. And Councillor Armour, you're more focused on the latter point, but that does mean that two of the committee members here are saying look for additional dwellings if they're achievable, and I haven't heard from the chair his formal opinion, but I do think that's where you were suggesting as well. So if we're deferring, we will be asking the developer to look again at the numbers and the layout if that's achievable to improve the density whilst responding to character, picking up some of the chair's comments that the character's perhaps more mixed than bungalows. And Chris, do you want to just come in and clarify on the adoption point?
Well, I think there's a couple of points. I'd just like to clarify for members really, because it's sort of got a little bit muddy. I think the reason highways currently are supporting it because it's failed to demonstrate that there's a suitable waste collection arrangements. Now, whether they have a private company or the council do it, the vehicle probably still needs to go into the site to turn around and come out. They need to be able to demonstrate that that can happen. As it stands, as my understanding is, as it stands, they're saying they're going to have a waste collection, private waste collection company, which would collect it from Denby Lane, which is the adopted highway. That would mean that their operatives have to take a bin from the bin collection point, 25 metres to the vehicle, and then 25 metres back. That's 50 metres for each bin. In practice, are they going to do that, or are they going to leave them on Denby Lane? Some members need to think about, is that a practical thing to do? If we would want, irrespective, if they have it gated or ungated, which I know members' preference is ungated, the layout currently beyond the gates isn't to adoptable standards. The bit in front, we would have been happy if they had demonstrated that was an adoptable turning head, that at least the vehicle could have got to that point, turned, picked up the bins from the waste collection point, come back out again. That would have been okay. That accommodates 2 of the bins. Some of them are some properties are on the front itself. It leaves the ones that are, I think it's another 4 dwellings, 5 properties, 5 to 9, which are then still 25 metres from the adopted highway. They need to get a bin collection point next to the adopted highway somewhere. Those are the constraints that I need to look at. If they're going to go the whole hog adopted, the whole site has to be adopted. If they're still saying we want the development itself to stay largely private, apart from the ones at front Denby Dale, up to where it is currently gated, needs to be an adoptable alternative. They need to demonstrate with a swept path that the vehicle can do that. Whether that is a private vehicle or a council vehicle, it still has to do it. And my only other comment I will make is that as a council, there's a statutory requirement to collect waste. If the private companies get fed up with dragging them 50 metres for each bin, it will start falling on the council to pick it up. So it needs to be a layout that we're happy with. I hope that's not been too confusing, but those are the sort of interlinked issues that are around the adoption and the servicing. We cannot force the developer to have an adoptable layout if he wants to keep the layout itself private, but they have to have demonstrated an acceptable waste collection solution.
Okay, thanks for that. So, I don't think we can bring you back in on this now, because I think we've had sufficient discussion on it. So I think we've had, obviously councillors have asked for the deferral, and Matthias, you've kind of set out the reasons for that and what we can look to do. Is our members happy with that based on what their reasons for wanting to defer? So we'll have to take that vote on that then. Sheila.
Right, so you're voting on deferral of the application as set out. Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Anwar?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Armour?
For.
Councillor Homewood?
Against.
Against. That's carried, Chair, 4 votes to 1.
Thanks. Thanks everyone for coming. That's the end of the meeting. Thanks for your time, and we'll discuss this one next time.